Greetings, fellow musicologists. Welcome to the channel. I'm Alex Tamulis, and today I wanted to share with you some thoughts on the Sabaton song, the new song. It's called Steel Commanders, and I know that they have an amazing history channel. It's called Sabaton History. I'm not the great historian, Indy Neidell. I've got a BA in linguistics, and I'm passionate about lyrics. I'm passionate about heavy metal, all sorts of metal, rock genres, and I felt it was just fitting to give it a go. Sabaton is a band of history geeks, and they have a particular interest in military history, especially during the 20th century. Essentially, the two world wars. The band, they've stated that many times, their music does not serve any political or religious purpose. They condemn anyone using their music for such purposes. With that out of the way, we commence. And let me warn everyone that these are my interpretations and they don't represent any official sources. I am here to discuss this brand new single. The video is a collab between Sabaton and Wargaming. It's a gaming company from Belarus. They developed the game World of Tanks. The band will participate in the game, right? I mean, they will release the first Tier 11 tank. It goes to Tier 10, and this one will be a Tier 11, so, it'll be like a premium tank. Besides that, the video also features Grammy Award nominated Tina Guo, who has a career in as a cellist, electric cellist, virtuoso. Tina is one of the most recorded solo cellists of all time. She's been a part of hundreds of movies, TV shows, soundtracks, you name it. All right, so without further ado, let's get into the song and the video itself. The video begins with no music. We see a knight/warrior, and he's killing his last enemy, the guy who was somewhat still standing on the battlefield. It looks like this is a medieval battle. The warrior screams, and it looks like his soul leaves his body in the form of this energy, and it'll be explained down the line as this energy, which I see as the spirit of combat, the soul of the brave, the shared courage among people who devote themselves to battle. This energy transcends eras, and it is represented as the warrior knight across several terrains, several seasons, battles. He gets so much knowledge and experience from all the battles. So everything he's seen, everything he's done. And we see now that the same knight shares the spirit with Sabaton. They're like, the descendants of this knight, and therefore they've inherited the courage, the braveness, and the spirit. The knight wields the sword, and at the same time, we have the bass player, Patton Sundström. He wields his axe while the bass neck, so this is a really neat parallel. And the same happens with the sword and the mic. We have Joachim there with the mic, and we get the confirmation that the spirit of war and combat is within the band members. And we have an Excalibur moment, the knight dies, but he gets to keep the energy within, the terrain there, the land, and several centuries later, a grenade is detonated and his energy is just released. And then the Sabatank, they were driving by the terrain at the exact moment. So guess what? The band now is fueled by the spirit, showing that my hypothesis in the beginning is confirmed. It's just a quick digression here, but the movie Patton does the same thing. When General Patton is, on the battlefield, he talks about the Romans, the battle against the Carthaginians, and he tells the subordinate Bradley there, he says, I was here 2,000 years ago. So I'm assuming that, Sabaton, they've seen the classic, and it's kind of like paying tribute to this idea because they mentioned Patton on the lyrics. So anyway, it was just a thought. Back to the video. The whole action is happening now. We have the main riff of the song. They're playing We have the cello there, and we hear these soaring operatic female backing vocals, kind of like, Carmina Burana type of choir. So it's a symphonic metal vibe, power metal classic, with all the vocals there, and then you have the drums kicking in with the double bass drums. You have guitar riffs, the electric cello, everything's going like crazy, and then Joaquin comes in, he's just singing. Over 100 years ago, since we first rode into fire, the rules of the battlefield, rolling over trench and wire. So that's right, World War I started on July 28th, 1914, 107 years ago, with the assassination of the Archduke Franz Ferdinand. No, the same from the Take Me Out, from Franz Ferdinand. That's the exact one. Anyway, I digress. Joaquin now is singing. There are several tanks all over the place, so it's good for us to stop right now and look at the history of these beasts, because the British, they've developed the first tank in 1915, so they wanted to develop an armored vehicle with, these conveyor belt-like tracks. So over the wheels, so it could break through the enemy lines. It could traverse difficult territory. So the plan goes to the Prime Minister, the British Navy Minister, Winston Churchill, and this concept of a land boat, and he okayed the prototype. So they had to keep the project secret from enemies, so they decided to call it, a water tank or something to just help with water, delivering water to the soldiers. So they named it Tank. They labeled Tank, and the name just stuck. So just a curious thought there. But the tank made its battle debut, if you will, exactly where Joaquin sings about. He talks about this battle in Flers-Courcelette, and these are just villages in northern France. So this battle is also shown as the Battle of the Somme, which is the river that runs near those villages. And the Germans, they lost ground. It was a very costly month for the German army back then. But before singing about the first tank in history, he mentioned two famous World War generals, Patton and Montgomery. Patton American, Montgomery British. They were in charge of these very important troops, and they had massively inflated egos. But we won't have time to cover these things, to delve into these two really great characters. But apart from these personality traits, what matters here is that they were both strategists. And I believe that Joaquin says that we followed, and he meant that we kept the good things about tactics and planning and war and everything. So the lyrics, they refer to the evolution of tanks. It's an homage to the first one, the one in Flers-Courcelette, and also the evolution towards the Battle of El Alamein in Egypt. This one in 1942, so almost 30 years later, advancing against the Axis in Egypt with, the tanks. The Brits, they brought the Mark III Valentine and the Mark IV Crusader, and the Americans brought the M4 Sherman. So for the second verse, we have other examples. We have the Mark I tank, which is the iconic one for being the first one in the evolution all the way to the Leopard. And I'm assuming it's the Leopard 1 and the Leopard 2, which were these German tanks designed in the 60s and the 70s, and they were used by many other European nations. So it was a really successful model, so he decided to mention it there too. But obviously the song is referring to the World of Tanks game, and he kept mentioning, other battles, the Battle of Provorovka. It occurred when the 5th Guards tank, which was part of the Soviet Red Army, attacked the Panzer Corps of the German SS. It was one of the largest tank battles in history. I think the Germans had 294 tanks versus freaking 616 tanks. And then he links this battle with the D-Day battle, the one that began on June 6th, 1944, with General Eisenhower of the United States, and then Montgomery from the UK. They led this Operation Overlord, the occupation of the Western Europe area that Germany invaded. So they used the code name for Operation Overlord, and they called it Sword. And Sabaton is mentioning everything because they're very historical. You know, the lyrics are full of history. So you have Normandy, and you don't have Patton there. Patton was supposed to lead the Americans, but he's not part of the D-Day strategizing. And in a way, Montgomery ended up taking the lead here. But if you want to know more about it, just watch the movie Patton and you will understand why. But in a nutshell, Patton was reprimanded due to abuse of power. But this is not the focus here. So suffice it to say, he wasn't involved in that Normandy invasion. But these characters that were mentioned, along with the tanks that we've been discussing, are the stars of the show. So these men, they command the steel. They rule the battlefield. They're just the leaders of Flandre. They're just beating the panzers, and leaders will command the steel. They will rule. So it's worth mentioning that the instrumental midsection there is super fun, and the video features Sabaton and the tank. They are the tank crew. They have the magical powers. They have the strength. So you see the energy shining there, and you also hear this neat melody that the guitar and the cello, they're just doing. Then there's a pause after they sing, "Still command us." Silence there. And the crew just passes out, you know, they just faint in a way due to the impact. But, well, I think they were hit. But they have that special energy, you know, they have the war fuel. They managed to come back and they hit the enemy panzer. They actually hit several tanks. And to end the video, the Sabaton tank, the Sabatank, with the beautiful engravings, and it is forged by the magical energy. And the crew leaves the tank all safe and sound. So a very cool concept, beautiful tribute to the history of tanks and to battles, as usual, you know, featured, well, you know, the band and participation of a cellist. So congrats to Sabaton for a very catchy tune, neat arrangements, melodic sections, a well-produced track, and a phenomenal partnership with Wargaming, with the World of Tanks. So it's a win-win situation here, and I just wanted to share some thoughts. So thank you for watching. Please consider subscribing to the channel. Please hit the bell button so you don't miss out on any new content. And remember that music is what music does. I'm signing out. See you in the next video. Bye now.